Good morning! Oh, we haven't said that in a while.
That's because that's only how we start our travel vlogs, and well, we haven't been traveling. So just like us, there's probably many of you who are itching to get traveling. And just because we can't travel right now doesn't mean we can't still plan for travel.
We have not been sitting idle. So in this video, we want to share with you what we've been doing and our tips and tricks for being prepared to take off once the pandemic is over.
Much like any vacation, your first steps are going to be to plan. Things like putting a budget together, choosing your destination or destinations, and putting an itinerary together. Now, because travel is probably going to be a little bit different post-pandemic, there are a couple extra things that we are putting into our planning section of this video, which is discussing scenarios and prioritizing your safety. So let's dive a little bit deeper into those items.
The very first part of planning any trip is money, 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 money. You need a solid budget. So take a look at your financial situation right now and kind of see what it would be like in 6 months or 9 months. Just be prepared, make a solid budget, and stay within it. That way you will avoid a lot of financial stress.
Once you've decided your budget, your next step is going to be to choose a destination. Now, traveling post-pandemic might mean that you can't actually travel to a destination that you had on your list prior, but that's okay. Maybe starting out with a weekend getaway, driving up somewhere and booking an Airbnb, or even starting with a day trip are both great options. Now, if you're really aching to get on a plane, try traveling domestically. That way you're still in familiar territory.
Now that you have your two big items, budget and destination, taken care of, it's time to plan out some scenarios. This is going to be a little different, primarily because your timeline is unknown. So you'll want to focus on your safety, your duration of stay, and what time of year it's going to be when you travel. Let's take a look at some of our scenarios that we've been thinking of for examples.
So we have 3 major scenarios that we've really been working with. The very first one is a local one. So this month in April, we had actually had a trip planned to drive up to Quebec, which is about a 6-hour drive from where we live, and we had rented an Airbnb that was a cabin in the woods. We were super stoked for it, and we were really upset that we had to cancel that trip. So probably once we can travel again, that's gonna be the first trip that we take. Now, the way that we're planning for this is we don't have any specific date in mind because we're not sure when we'll be able to travel, but we regularly check to see what cabins are available in the later months of this year. And that way we know once things kind of start to lessen up and we'll be able to maybe start moving a little more, we can check back on those dates and see if those are still available.
I am an optimist, so I've been thinking about what we can do if everything goes back to normal by some stroke of miracle later this year in the fall. That's going to probably be a trip out to Cyprus, which Tia has some family, and we'll just sit on the beach. It's a nice and easy trip that we have done quite a few times, so we know you'll pan out if we need to book it last minute. On the budgeting side of that, we have been tracking flights and all our regular routes to Cyprus since before the pandemic even took place, so we're well prepared for that.
Scenario number 3 actually has 2 parts to it. So for those of you who have been following along for a while, this year we started the Canadian Travel Challenge. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. We do have half of that trip already on YouTube. Basically what we had done is Flair Airlines, which is a local Canadian airline, had a travel pass that was going to allow us to travel unlimited amount of times from mid-February to mid-May. And so our challenge that we wanted to do was to try and travel every weekend in that time frame. Now obviously that plan came to a crashing halt when the pandemic happened. So one of the scenarios we have is to obviously pick that back up. The reason I say it's broken into 2 parts is because we look at different times of year of when the pandemic might end. If we look at Andy's scenario, where it all ends later in the year, we might actually pick this back up in the fall. If we look at a worst case scenario where this doesn't end until next year, we'll probably pick it back up in winter of next year.
Canadian seasons are very drastically different, so the activities are very different. This is why Tia, primarily Tia, has put together some nice weekend itineraries for us that are anywhere from like 2 days to 5 days in both seasons. And she have put them together, we know where we're going, and again, we can do it at last minute if we have to. Now you know where you're going, possibly when you're going. What's next?
Step number 2 is to check out some actual flight prices.
And this is where Andy goes crazy, because people keeps telling me them.
Now, it's highly unlikely that the prices you see today are going to be the same prices when we're able to travel again, but we personally like to track prices just to see the ups and downs. If we happen to come across a flight drop that has really special circumstances and is fully refundable in any circumstance,
that's key.
We might be booking it. So we like to keep track of what is going on, especially with so much unknown in the travel industry right now. Just having that insight into the prices and the peaks and curves of everything is just really good to know.
So are there things that you look for before you just go, I have to book this now, even in this situation?
Definitely. We like to look at what were the prices even just a week ago? What were the prices even just a month ago? What is the regular price versus what the price is right now? And this is something that we actually get from multiple different sources. We are signed up on a couple of different email lists. Some are free, some are subscription based. We also like to check Google Flights quite frequently because that usually gives us a good information of what the prices were over a range of time.
And for the pandemic specific scenario is that refundable tickets. That's a crucial thing that we're going to be looking for if we're going to be booking unknown tickets.
Now, if you haven't seen our video about when will we be able to travel again, check it out up here. We do talk about some of the key milestones or key pieces of things we're looking for before we personally are going to book any travel, just because there is so much uncertainty and we don't want to be booking more trips that we would not be able to take.
So, right there, click it. You know you want to. Step number 3 is to save some money. We know that a lot of people are financially impacted by COVID. However, some of your budget that was to be used this year could possibly be rolled over into next year. You do want to be at a place where you can just look at a deal and book it without having to put on your credit card, let's say. Another thing to remember is some of those vouchers that you may have gotten from flight refunds, if you got them in vouchers, do have an expiration date that needs to be used usually during the next 365 days. So mark your calendar and make sure you book before that to take full advantage of them. This is exactly what's happening with our Go Travel Pass with Flair. So we have our calendars marked and we will definitely be booking those trips before they expire.
Now, also don't discount all-inclusive vacations. These might be heavily discounted to try and just get traffic back into a country and really help that economy. Things like going to Mexico, Cuba, Dominican Republic are also great possibilities to look into that might kind of help if you don't have a big travel budget after the pandemic.
That is a great point. Just to mention, for all-inclusives, you may want to take a look at things like Expedia or Kayak. The deals could be living on there.
Well, that wraps up this video on how to plan for travel during the pandemic. And no, I don't mean traveling during the pandemic. I mean planning your travel for when the pandemic ends. If you have any other tips to add to this, any travel plans that you might be doing, please put them in the comment below. We'd love to hear what everyone else is working on to try and get back into traveling once things go back to normal.
Also, for this particular thing, we're going to special plug our social medias. We have a lot of discussion going on there, so hit us up at Twitter and Instagram right here.
Well guys, Tia and Andy out.